Hello, strangers. I'm Andy,
Yes, and I'm Mark.
and this is Strange Stuff, and we are back. I think we should be now recording an episode every week for your absolute enjoyment and revulsion.
Sorry, organising lights here. I've just got bad reflection. Oh, that's better.
Oh, so nothing's changed at your end.
No, bad reflections, exactly.
So, what have you been doing for the last 3 months?
I've just come back from the UK, actually.
And what was the purpose of this trip?
What was it?
Apart from forgetting to get my fucking Bovril cubes again.
Yes, well, I can't remember. I've got such a list of things to buy. I can't remember everything. It was actually my friend's retirement party. So we did
A
that.
retirement party.
Yeah.
That's depressing.
Well, it's coming to that age, Andy. People retiring.
I mean,
So that was good fun.
I suppose it's better than a funeral, which is the usual excuse for going back these days.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, it's definitely better than a funeral. So I was away for a week in the UK, and really just preparing for the winter. Actually,
Talking of which, we've got snow.
you've got snow.
Yeah, it started on Friday. It will disappear, but it's on the floor at the moment.
Really? So winter has started. I mean, I suppose we're into November, obviously, so it's not surprising.
Yeah.
What is it? The 3rd of November.
Yeah, we had a bit of a, I wouldn't call it a team building because that's not happening right now. But we had a bit of a get together on Friday. So me and Teresa went out for lunch and then we went to meet up with the rest of them.
Yeah.
And it was snowing the whole time. So I just took my car. There was no way I was going to get on buses or anything.
Yeah. So you were
So
alcohol free.
I was until I got home. And then, because we didn't stay that long. We started at 4:00. We left about 6:30.
All right.
Because I wasn't drinking. It wasn't much fun. And there was already some drunken ones. And then about 10:00, I started getting weird text messages on my phone from Robin.
Who's one of your colleagues?
Things like, I'm worried about your future health and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, one of the messages said, open your door. And I thought, no. And I've looked out the window and there's some headlights coming up my fucking driveway. And I had a crew of drunken co-workers turn up at my house at 10:00.
For a
trying to drag me into town and drink anything that I had in the house. It was quite funny. Eric was here, who's like 230 kilos. You should have seen him trying to come up my fucking stairs.
Yeah.
But it was good fun.
Good. Of course, you've put winter tyres on my car. That was expensive.
Yeah.
I had to buy winter tyres for the new one.
Oh, which one? Which car?
The Alpine.
Oh, the new one.
Yeah. So
it's already costing you money.
Yeah, but I mean, it's cars. All cars cost money.
Yes. Although my car went down. My lease went actually down. I would say quite substantially.
Really?
Yeah, I'm now paying £100 less than I was before.
So that is a beer, isn't it? It's a beer a month you get bonus.
Yeah.
That you weren't expecting.
Yeah. But we'll see what happens in July. I mean, if I've got a job.
Yeah, how are things going there?
Well, 2 weeks ago, we had the cull. We found out on like the Monday that by Wednesday, 850 people would know whether or not they had a job.
Not 850 lost their job. It's just that was the what would you call it? The store, not a store, was
No,
it?
850 people were going from our place.
Oh, they were. It was
Yes.
850 that were losing their jobs.
That's the blue collar. The white collar was already finished with. We lost 300 of those.
Woof.
So it's been a very stressful time. We lost 4 people from my department.
Really?
I
And you
wasn't
weren't
one of
one of them.
them.
I would have thought you were at the top of the hit list.
Well, luckily, it wasn't up to the individual managers to choose who had to
Uh-huh.
go. It was sort of negotiated by the union and HR, I guess.
Right. So that was quite a big chunk of your department, isn't it? Because there was only about 20
Um,
people in your
well,
department.
well, no. When I say my department, no actual operators were got rid of.
Right.
We lost one naturally who found a different job before this
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
And we lost one engineer and 2 from the assembly department, but they were basically all 3 of them on their 6-month probation.
Right. Right.
So they were pretty much in the shooting line anyway.
So 850 people, that must represent something like 20% of the workforce, 25% of the workforce.
Yeah, I would say so. And I haven't even seen the impact on the parking yet because they've been given a month's notice, and for some reason most of them seem to be doing it.
Hmm. You go,
I
oh, you
mean,
mean you
I
don't,
just
you would
I
just walk
wouldn't.
out.
I,
Oh,
I've got other things to worry about, like where am I going to live? Where am I going to fucking work?
yeah.
I'm not going to stand there doing their fucking job. It's just ridiculous.
Um, so I wonder what what effect that has on the production capacity. I
Well,
mean, because they've got to make sufficient numbers just for the business to tick over. And if they haven't got enough people to make that, then they're in trouble, big trouble.
well, the trouble is not finished by a long way.
Hmm.
On Thursday last week, I went in to find that the coffee machines have been switched off.
What?
Yeah, there's the coffee machine contract has obviously not been paid, and they've disabled all the coffee machines on the site. And my personal kettle was now the focal point of the whole fucking factory because it was the only source of hot water in the place. So I've had to remove it and put it in my locker and take it out just for break times because it's a domestic kettle. It's going to last about 10 minutes with 3,000 people trying to make a brew.
So, as a matter of interest, are management visible at the moment, or are they all in the bunker hiding?
Well, our managers are visible, but we get this weekly CEO update, and basically he says, he's like, you can see the flames behind him, and he's just sitting there saying, "It's fine, it's fine." It's just bullshit propaganda that we get. We get no real information whatsoever.
Oh,
I mean, we have rumours all the time about won't get paid. This is going to happen. That's going to happen, and when stuff like they can't afford the coffee happens, you've got to start listening to the rumours.
yeah, it's certainly not a great situation. That is absolutely for
No,
sure.
no, I need the
Um,
help of one of our subjects of today's episode.
Sorry, what is that? What was that? I missed the intro. Something is what? An object of what?
I need the help of one of the subjects of today's episodes.
From me.
Oh, the subject is the thing we're talking about, and I need their
Redundancy.
help. Oh my God. It's like working with a stuffed toy. I might as well have a fucking puppet on my hand. Hello. We're
Oh
talking
dear.
about mediums today.
Mediums.
Yeah. I had a little message from Luke, our friend on the Isle of Skye.
My man.
And he suggested it. If he said if we were coming back, because he was asking if we are planning on coming back, and here we are. So thanks for that, Luke. And this is specially for you and your little Scottish wildlife friends up there in the Isle of Man.
Are mediums the same as spiritual guides?
The whole spiritualist thing is sort of connected. And it was started more or less by some sisters, two young sisters in Hydesville, New York, back in March 1848, when you were just a small stripling of a lad.
What, you mean there weren't mediums before that?
Not really. Not
Not
really.
commercial ones?
Not the type we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about two types. We're going to talk about the fraudsters, obviously, but we're going to intersperse it a little bit with some pretty strange and accurate mediums who may make you go,
Ooh. So what are we starting with, the fraudsters or the real ones?
We're going to start with the starters. So teenager Maggie Fox and her younger sister Kate claimed that they were communicating with a spirit from the other world who was making strange raps on the walls and furniture in their house. And when their mother asked how many children she'd had, the spirit appeared to rap out the correct number.
2.
Now, one of their neighbours reportedly witnessed these sounds, and word spread that there was something strange going on at the rapping house.
Yeah.
Now, it turns out that Maggie and Kate made these noises by cracking their knuckles, toes, and other joints that they could do while they were literally sitting still. They trained themselves to make those noises.
People can crack their toes?
Yes. I used to have a girlfriend who could literally just move her neck like that and crack every spine, what's name, in her neck.
Vertebrae.
Every vertebrae, quite loudly.
Oh my God, that sounds horrible.
I think they call it ectomorphic. I might be wrong, but I remember talking to one of those leg breaking people about it. You know, the ones who chiropractor. That's the one. It's ectomorphic. You can literally just crack your joints without any effort whatsoever.
Just using your own muscles in your feet.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit nasty, though.
Yeah. Well, it was the fact that Maggie, the older sister, confessed to the New York World 40 years later in 1888. But by that point, the childhood prank had spun out of control, and the now grown-up sisters had become famous mediums. The Fox sisters and their public seances helped spark the spiritualism movement in the United States and Europe, built on the belief that it was possible for living humans to communicate with the dead.
I can believe it from a commercial perspective, but I imagine that mediums or spiritual guides have been around for literally donkey's years. I mean, hundreds of years.
Well, we used to have the spirit guides, but they were basically an animal that would lead you on a path, and you had your own spirit animal, but that was very tribal.
All right. So what happens to these girls? They've been found out frauds.
No.
Years later.
That was at the end, but before
did people ask their money back?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. So soon after Maggie and Kate's supernatural discoveries, the girls went to live with their older sister, Leah, in Rochester. And when the
Yeah.
supernatural occurrences continued, Lear decided to turn this into a little bit of a business. In November 1849, at Rochester's Corinthian Hall, Maggie and Kate demonstrated their powers to a paying crowd of nearly 400 people. Newspapers began to report on the girls, and the sisters soon held public demonstrations in New York City. Plenty of people denounced them as fakes, and some correctly even guessed that the sisters were just cracking their joints. But many others believed that they were witnessing a true spiritual phenomenon. And you can understand it, because a lot of people, when they're suffering from bereavement or grief, they would literally open themselves up to any possible way that they could have one last chat with their lost loved one. So you're already dealing with a completely vulnerable group of people.
But I don't
Right
understand
for the
this
picking.
open things in the middle of Central Park. What's that all about?
What do you mean?
Why did they have it in public with thousands of people? Who did they communicate with?
I said 400 people.
All right, well, 400.
And it wasn't in the open. I don't know where you got Central Park from. It was at Corinthian Hall
Yeah,
in
but same
Rochester.
thing.
Hello, Mr. Andy. I'd like to take over now if I could, because Mark is a fucking moron. Where do you get Central Park from?
I just thought it was public. When you said public spaces, I got Central Park in my mind.
Anyway, soon other people started copying them and beginning to open their own shows in which they claimed to be mediums who could communicate with the dead. And that's basically how the whole medium thing started. There is a difference between mediumship and spiritualism, and one of the key aspects that differentiates it is its connection to the growing media and entertainment industries in the United States and Europe. People in the business of spiritualism gave paid theatrical performances featuring elaborate lighting, music, and table-tipping seances. And the Fox sisters became celebrities, and so too did other self-proclaimed mediums. In the 1850s, for example, Ira and William Davenport became famous for what was essentially a magic show, using tricks that they attributed to spiritual intervention. Many stage magicians differentiated themselves from spiritualists, like the Davenport brothers, by exposing what spiritualists did as a hoax, something for which Harry Houdini was very famous for. He used to spend a lot of time debunking spiritualists and mediums. But despite these exposures, spiritualism remained extremely popular throughout the 19th century.
So it's a bit like the evangelical churches. It's a bit of a show. People want to believe.
Yeah, it's theatre. It's theatre. Have you ever had any experience at all with the spiritualist or medium side or anyone in your family?
Oh dear. We've lost connection, Andy. There's a gap.
Yeah, I'm asked you a question.
What did you ask me?
I asked you if you've had any personal experience or if anyone in your family has used a medium or a spiritualist.
No, don't be stupid, no. Well, I say don't be stupid, no. No, absolutely not. The only reason I asked, but you see, hang on a second, I'm getting confused here. I don't think a spiritualist, is that the same thing as a spiritual guide? Because a spiritualist, you're talking God or something.
No,
whereas
you're
a spiritual
talking...
guide, spirit guide is talking to the dead.
A spiritualist talks to the dead. A spiritual guide gives you advice, life advice. Usually it's your personal fox or your personal cat who will guide you in the right direction or the right path to take. Yes.
No, it's not. No, a spiritual guide is one of your deceased relatives.
No, that's a fucking ghost.
No.
Oh,
no.
I'm not going to argue with you because at the moment you're in Central Park having a cup of coffee.
No, because I knew someone who, one of my friends actually, was a bit of
Is
a
he dead?
spiritual guide. No,
Is he dead
she's
now?
alive. No, but she used to be able to identify who was your spiritual guide, and it was always someone who was deceased. So she was more like a medium than a spiritual guide.
So
But
what do
I,
you do? What do you do for a spiritual guide before your spiritual guide dies?
well,
Or is
you've
your
always.
spiritual guide always dead before you're born?
That's a good question, actually. Do they change? Yes, that's a very good question. I'll have to ask her. Are you born with
You,
an already deceased spiritual guide?
if she's any good, you could just project your thoughts to her now and get an
Yeah,
immediate answer.
yeah. I'll do my best. Anyway, so these people are up on the road making money. Did they make a lot of money? I mean, an obscene amount of money, the Fox sisters.
I would imagine with their private readings, they charged quite expensive amounts of money.
Yeah,
Because, of course, apart from the shows where they charged per ticket, there would have been a lot of interest from rich people who wanted private readings.
yeah, yeah.
But I think now might be a good time to throw in something a little bit more tangible,
What?
a medium that actually helped solve a crime.
Oh, well, they're quite common, aren't they? They made a TV series about it.
Yeah, but just because it's on the telly doesn't mean it's real. I've been watching The Boys, and I'm fairly certain that there's no superheroes flying around my place.
Yeah, oh,
So on November 23rd, 1982, 18-year-old Amy Hoffman left her part-time job at a shopping mall in Morristown, New Jersey, but she never got farther than the parking lot. The next day, her car was found where she'd left it with the driver's door open. Foul play was immediately suspected, and when police came up empty-handed, they approached a lady called Nancy Weber, a local psychic who they'd successfully worked with in the past. Nancy had already had visions of Hoffman's body and the assault that she'd endured before being killed, and she led police down an investigative trail that ultimately ended with the murder conviction of a chap called James Kieditch, who had struck again in the meantime, killing 25-year-old Deirdre O'Brien. So before the police even came to her, she'd already had a premonition or some kind of
visit.
visit from
Oh,
either a victim or someone spirit who was shopping that day and saw something happen in the parking lot.
because I thought there had to be some sort of connection. You had to touch something, some physical connection to
Some
initiate
people
the.
need some people need an actual physical connection. Other people are just more sensitive. A bit like me, I'm sensitive.
Yeah, there's buffalo skin. Um, so when the police went to this woman, she'd already solved the crime. She knew where everything was.
Basically, they can be very, very accurate. Again, in 1987, there was a 42-year-old nurse and mother of 5, Elizabeth Cornish, who was beaten to death in a New Jersey apartment, and the only suspect was her boyfriend, who is quite normal. Boyfriend or husband is always the first suspect, because he was the one who had found the body. However, no one in the family could fathom that the boyfriend was the killer because it just wasn't. It didn't sit right with them. And that's when Cornish's sister approached Nancy Weber for assistance. And Weber knew immediately that Cornish's boyfriend hadn't committed the crime.
Because
And
she
she
was with him.
What? What?
She was with him. They were having an affair. So she knew immediately that he couldn't have been the killer.
That's exactly what happened. But she alerted the local police, who were familiar with her and her work, of course. And at the scene of the crime, Weber told the police that the killer lived right upstairs from Cornish. Weber's description of the killer matched 33-year-old John Reese, who lived in the apartment above Cornish. And Reese was able to provide an alibi for the time of death that the coroner initially identified. However, Weber was relentless in her belief that not only was Reese the killer, but also the time of death was actually 4 hours earlier. Upon re-examination, the coroner had to change the time of death, rendering Reese's alibi moot. So Reese subsequently confessed and was sentenced to life in prison for the murder.
Job well done. Did she get paid?
I don't know if she charges for her services. I think a lot of people who help the police do it for free. I don't think the police could justify it on their budget.
Well, they probably use that as promotion, advertising, as it were. And then when people want to go investing in the stock market, they consult her for stock tips and things like that.
Possibly. Anyway, back to the 1800s.
Hang on. We're going back to the 1800s.
Yes.
Hmm?
Not everyone who attended these spiritualism shows believed what they were seeing. And some went as skeptics who wanted to see for themselves if there was anything convincing about the Fox sisters or what any of the other mediums did. And some just went for entertainment value. But for many people, demonstrations of spiritualism were not only believable, but deeply comforting. During and after the Civil War, many Americans found solace in the idea that they could communicate with the people that they'd lost. And one of these people, and we talked about her a couple of weeks ago, was Mary Todd Lincoln. And during Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
Yes, and during his presidency, she'd held seances in the White House to communicate with her tragically dead children.
Mm.
So the spiritualism craze also found many followers in Europe. After the death of Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert, in 1861, the Queen held many seances in Buckingham Palace in order to talk to him.
Successfully? Hello, Albert.
Hi, Albert! Are you there, mate? I'm having it off with the gardener now. Gonna make a
With
film
who?
about it one
The
day.
gardener?
Yeah. Do you remember that Billy Connolly film that they did? He was the gardener. Started banging the Queen, probably, I think.
Oh, Mr. Brown.
Yes. I mean, they didn't bang on the Netflix version, but you know, you don't spend that much time alone. Of course they were.
Yeah.
She was a proper perv as well. Old Filthy Vic, as she was known down the pub. Anyway, Maggie Fox's confession in 1888 that her and her sister's communication with the dead had been a hoax, as well as a public demonstration of how they actually made the noises, was big news amongst people who were interested in spiritualism. At a public demonstration attended by Kate and held shortly after the publication of the confession, the New York Herald reported that Maggie was greeted with cheers and hisses. When I began this deception, I was too young to know right from wrong, said Maggie to the crowd. That I have been mainly instrumental in perpetrating the fraud of spiritualism upon a too confiding public, many of you already know, and it is the greatest sorrow of my life.
Well, 40 years later.
Yes, this is after the confession.
Oh.
But for believers, the news wasn't necessarily a killing blow to spiritualism's credibility.
Because
there are a lot of situations in which spiritualist mediums were caught faking, committing fraud, or spiritualist mediums making declarations similar to Maggie's confession. But these never ever stopped people from believing in it. It isn't clear what motivated Maggie to confess it had been a hoax, nor is it clear why exactly she recanted that confession the next year. Probably cash.
Yeah, well,
Regardless of Maggie and
mm,
Kate's true feelings about their careers as medium, the spiritualist craze that they'd unwittingly helped start continued to be popular well into the 20th century, as we know.
I think the thing is that it's a bit like Trump. You know, you just get carried away. You want to believe so badly all of the evidence in front of your eyes, even people admitting to it being a fraud, you still want to believe that it's true and that you can talk to Uncle Bob who kicked the bucket a few years ago. It is amazing how people are so willing to want to be
Yeah, but as I say, they're
deceived.
vulnerable. They're vulnerable because they
Yeah,
feel like they didn't have a final goodbye or whatever.
no, a
But
final goodbye.
New Jersey seems to be a bit of a hotbed for mediums because there was another lady there called Debbie Keys, who was a mother of three from Harding, New Jersey, and she hadn't seen her three children in 13 months since the father had abducted them. Keys brought the idea of seeking the assistance of a psychic to the detective who was working the case, Sergeant Lou Masterbone. He was skeptical.
Masterbone?
Yeah,
That's not
that's
a
a tragic
name.
name. It's a
Lou
tragic name to
Masterbone.
have.
No,
Masterbone
that's
by
not.
name, Masterbone by nature.
No, that's not a name.
Well, in this case, it is. Skeptical of psychics, Masterboner was reluctant. However, as he told CNN's Nancy Grace in 2005, Weber led them on a three-state chase that ended in Hawaii, with Keys being reunited with her kids. And while this story had a happy ending, there are many others that didn't, but we won't go into those because that's not what we're here for.
And you haven't done the research.
No, I've got too many others to tell you. On May the 15th in 1986, Dora and Jake Cohn, both 72, were shot and killed in their upstate New York home. Their grandson, James Mariani, became the prime suspect, and it was believed that he had two accomplices, Keith Snare and Robert Skinner, with whom Mariani had previously served prison time. 2 years after the alibis of these men checked out, psychic Noreen Rainier was brought in by law enforcement at the Cohn family's request. And working with the police hypnotist, Rainier revealed that the couple knew their killer and that there were three people involved. Law enforcement then arranged a photo lineup that included Mariani, Snare, and Skinner, along with men who could not possibly have been connected with the shooting, which Noreen conducted with her eyes closed. Placing her hands on the photos, she identified Mariani, Snare, and Skinner, and this led to a re-examination of their alibis, which it turned out did not hold up. All three were then convicted of murder and are serving life prison sentences.
So you're going to list a number of cases where mediums successfully helped convict the criminals.
Yes.
It begs the question, why don't the police always employ mediums for cases where they've come to a bit of a dead end?
That could open a Pandora's box of fake
Of
mediums working for the police, and a lot
yeah,
of unjust unjust criminal activity or unjust legal activity, putting innocent people in prison just to prove the medium right.
no,
It's a very dangerous way to start
I
treading.
don't think medium's testimony is going to stand up in court, Andy, but they might say the murder weapon is under the stone in the garden, and the police go there and find the murder weapon under the stone in the garden.
It was Colonel Mustard in the library with the rope.
No, exactly.
I mean,
You can't use that argument. You're citing cases where it actually worked. So all I'm
yes,
saying is, why not broaden the net?
because I'm sure there are hundreds more cases where it didn't work. and actually impeded the police investigation and pointed them in the wrong direction.
Right. So I suppose if there's thousands upon thousands of mediums helping the police, sometimes they're going to get it right, which is what you're reporting. So it's all a game of numbers. It's just
It
chance.
is a numbers game. It is a numbers game, but if you can find a medium that is like on the plus percentage side of accurate and helpful,
Yeah.
then you hang on to them.
Oh,
But how many mediums out there actually do steer the police in the wrong direction?
well,
Only the police can
maybe.
answer that.
Maybe.
John DeMars was a happily married 30-year-old New York City banker, one of your own.
Are there any happily married people?
Well, at 30,
Oh, I see.
probably.
Yes.
At 32, not so much.
He wasn't so happy.
Well, he didn't make 31, so
All right.
so he had two young children at 30 while he was happily married. When he boarded his evening commuter train to Nutley in New Jersey on December 20th, 1974. But when the train stopped in Nutley, DeMars wasn't aboard. The police investigation, which addressed both foul play committed against DeMars and the possibility that he'd voluntarily ran away, eventually called upon the assistance of psychic Dorothy Allison. She's quite famous, I believe. Allison told detectives that she saw John falling off the train and drowning. And while she couldn't say exactly where this had happened, she did say she saw a bow and arrow and the numbers 222.
Hang on a second.
So-
It wouldn't be too difficult to narrow it down. If the fellow fell off a train and drowned, they've got to look for a bridge going over a river or something.
See, you've already missed the main clue. The bow and arrow points directly at Robin Hood.
What's Robin Hood got to do with it?
He's obviously guilty. Fucking bow and arrow. Who else
wasn't
could
the
it
only
be?
one to have a bow and arrow, you idiot.
I would be arresting Kevin Costner right now.
Exactly.
No,
So
but
anyway,
although-
carry on. So this woman, Dorothy, are we on Dorothy? Yeah.
We're on Dorothy Allison. So although law enforcement couldn't make sense of all the clues that she offered, the body of John DeMars turned up 2 months later on February the 2nd. February the 22nd. So 222. A father and son had been practicing archery by the shore of the Passaic River, which runs along DeMars' train route, when one of their arrows landed beside DeMars' dead body in shallow water.
Spooky.
Yeah, that is quite spooky. Police later pieced together that DeMars had fallen asleep on the train, and when the conductor made an unscheduled stop along the Passaic River Bridge, DeMars, still half asleep, stepped off the train thinking he was at his station, falling off the bridge and drowning.
It was an accident.
Yeah, basically he woke up because the train jerked to a stop probably and thought, oh, we're here, and just jumped out the door.
Hang on, I've just got to turn this off. How do you reject a call?
Press the red one.
All right, hang on. Yeah, carry on. So hang on a second. So I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Why is it they're always women?
It's not always women. I actually knew a medium.
You knew
many,
a
many
medium?
years ago. Yeah. He was quite a famous one. He was on TV. I'm not going to mention his name. But he was quite successful. But I'm
So
fairly
it was a
certain.
bloke.
Yeah, but I'm fairly
You
certain he
sure?
was a fraud.
You are almost certain he was a fraud.
Yeah, I didn't believe him at the time. Although, but what happened was he was a friend of a friend, and I'd heard my friend talk about him, and some of the things he did, and he was on TV a bit and all the rest of it. And then one day, I was only about 18 or something. I was
18.
walking, I was walking through Leicester Square in Soho somewhere.
Were
And all
you?
of a
What were you doing
sudden,
walking through Leicester Square? Anyway, carry on.
I,
Yeah.
used, I suddenly heard this voice shout out, Andy. And I've turned
Hello.
around and there's this bloke with another bloke. And I've gone, do I know you? And he said, oh, I'm blah, blah, friend of blah, blah. I went, how did you know it was me? He said, I'm a medium. It's what I do. I mean, I was impressed because we're in the middle of London.
It's not difficult to identify you, Andy.
I
There's
did
only
not look
one
like this.
bull-headed.
I did not look like this when I was 18. I was gorgeous. I still am. But I was
Was that
impressed
the end
by
of
that.
Dorothy? Surely Dorothy's got a whole string of successful stories
I
of
can give you
bows and arrows.
I can give you another one. May the 15th, 1976.
Well, hang on, why is it all there? Why is all of your references are in the 70s and 80s? What happened to 2010 or 2024? Have they all given up?
The police tend to move away from psychics as time goes on because like they don't like to be using supernatural methods in their detective work. They find it a little bit too 1970s, I guess.
I'll be using it all the time if it solved crimes.
Yeah, but it makes the police look stupid as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Which isn't hard. So on May the 15th, 1976, 14-year-old Susan Jacobson left her Staten Island home for an after-school job at a local ice cream parlour. And she never returned
14?
home. 14?
You can't stop. You can't have a job at 14.
Of course you can. If you listen to the sentence completely, I said an after-school job.
14?
Yes. Why not? In the 70s, of course you had a job at 14 after school.
What do you think happened to all the paper boys that don't exist anymore? What happened to them? Did they have a union to protect their jobs, do you think?
Yeah.
Did you do a paper round?
I did. I used to get 50p a week.
50 what? Pence?
50 pence a week.
And what was that, an hour's work?
Oh,
every day?
Easily an hour's work at dawn before school. And the weekends, oh my God.
Did you do it on a bike or did you walk?
No, I walked.
It was a bit slavey labour, wasn't it?
It was. That was child labour. Oh. Law enforcement, anyway, dismissed the parents' concerns. A 14-year-old girl not coming home. I mean, law enforcement, wake up. Claiming that the girl had simply run away with her boyfriend.
Did she have a boyfriend?
Embarrassingly, that attitude still exists today. When a person goes missing, the first 48 hours are crucial. If you don't find them within the first 48 hours, the chances are 80% sure that you will never find them. And the police, 9 times out of 10, won't even take a missing report person for the first 24 hours.
Even
and
if they're 14?
That really needs to fucking change.
Well, especially if they're children. I can't believe you have to wait 24 hours for a teenager.
Well, in desperation, the Jacobsons went directly to Dorothy Allison. And upon meeting the Jacobsons, Allison experienced a disturbing vision in which Susan was strangled by her boyfriend. And she offered several clues as to where the body would be found. The clues themselves were a little bit mysterious. An abandoned car, the smell of fuel oil, 2 smokestacks, and the letters MAR in red spray paint.
Oh, maybe she was going to say Mark and only got to the first three letters.
Or it was the first three letters of Mars and she'd actually been abducted by murderous aliens.
Yes, that would be a good story. Can we do one on that? Murderous aliens.
Well, law enforcement declined to investigate these clues, but incredibly enough, Jacobson's father was able to use them to locate a rock spray painted with the letters MAR at an abandoned World War One shipyard from which two smokestacks and an abandoned car could be seen. And that's where Susan's body was found 2 years later, concealed in two oil drums.
Not nice.
Crime scene evidence pointed to none other than the boyfriend, Dempsey Hawkins, who was actually a UK national. And he was deported back to England and sentenced to 22 years in prison.
So, sorry, this happened in England?
No, it happened in America, but he was a UK national.
No,
he was deported.
When you
use
these
back to England.
England. Yeah, but if the crime happened in America, wouldn't he be charged in America?
They probably thought, why should we pay to feed him for 420 years when you can have him for like 20 years and let him out in 8 and he can go and kill someone else?
I don't like your use of Americanisms. Why don't you just say chimney? Chimney is the right word. What's a smokestack?
It's a stack that smoke comes out of.
A chimney.
Okay, it's a chimney. Does that clarify for you? I mean, you're confused. You're confused
I thought it was a bonfire.
You're already confused between continents. So
incontinence confuses me.
That's when you're sitting in a wet patch, you need to ask Nursey to change you.
Nursey? Is that what she gets called in the years to come?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to give you a little quick, more recent one. We'll go into 2004.
Ah, good.
So 20 years ago. And
I
20
could work
years
that
ago,
out. Yeah.
20-year-old Ashley Howley disappeared from the town of Columbus in Ohio.
Ohio.
Yes. And while the case went cold, Ashley, or rather her spirit, was diligently trying to communicate with Kirsty Robert, a Michigan spiritual medium who spoke extensively with Reader's Digest about helping law enforcement solve crimes like this one.
Oh.
And Ashley's spirit, which, according to Robinette, needed time to figure out how to get her message across, eventually told Robinette she'd been murdered by her boyfriend and where her body could be found. And in 2008, her body was found in the very spot she said it would be, marked by a stick. And her boyfriend was brought to justice.
What, 4 years later?
Yes, because again, law enforcement are saying, yeah. Nice one. Thanks a lot. We'll look into it. Fucking nutter.
Yeah, but the thing is that some of these clues are a bit, I mean, they're accurate to the extent they're accurate, but they're not accurate enough to actually identify. I mean, if it took the father, how long did it take the father? 2 years?
No, the father
with
found
the smokestack one.
No, the father found the location quite quickly, but they found the body 2 years later stashed inside two oil drums. You can imagine that was quite a large area. Oh. And with no concrete evidence to go on, how can you instigate a search of that?
No, but that's what I mean. It's not quite accurate enough to, pinpoint exactly where.
But it is accurate enough to warrant a little bit of credibility when certainly some of these mediums come forward.
Yeah. You're right.
I mean, Robinette was also visited by another young woman from Ohio in August of 2005, and this was the spirit of another 20-year-old, Julie Popovich, who was a student at Ohio State, who had disappeared early that month. And Julie's body was discovered 3 weeks later, but not before Julie pushed her way through the other spirits waiting to speak with her, and she asked her to draw the map of where the body was be found. And it was. So, you know, there are stories that can't be explained as hoaxes or just nonsense.
As I say, I think every police station should have a resident medium. Get these crimes sorted.
Possibly.
Even if it's specifically missing people. Help find missing people. I suppose that's probably their bread and butter business, actually, mediums, finding missing people.
Well, I mean, we'll end these stories on a happy note.
Oh, good.
With Robinette again. Katie was a troubled child living in a group home when she ran away. And that's when Robinette got a call from Katie's parents. And hearing the panic of Katie's mum on the phone, she knew she had to help. So she tuned in to see if she could sense her spirit as alive or gone, she remembers. Happily, she felt Katie was alive, and she was. And with Robinette's help, law enforcement was able to locate Katie before something terrible happened to her, because she was only 15 when she disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And Robinette asked that Reader's Digest keep her last name and other identifying details confidential, which they did. But there you go. She rescued or helped rescue a kid who was absolutely in danger. But she managed to do it in time.
Good.
So there you have it. Mediums, true or false? What do you think?
Well, you know, I think the evidence speaks for itself. There's obviously plenty of charlatans out there, but I think clearly some people have a gift to communicate with another dimension.
Yes. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's episode, and I'm happy to say that there will be another one next week. So keep your eyes out and your ears open, and don't forget to follow us at strangestuffpodcast.com. Check out our Facebook, and I think that's it, actually. We also have a Facebook group, Strange Stuff Podcast, which you can join. And if you like this sort of stuff, I don't know if you've been listening to our Patreon episodes that I've been putting up for free every week, but you can check those out as well. And there's plenty more if you'd like to become a Patreon. And you can find that at patreon.com/Strange Stuff Podcast. So have yourselves a strange week. And in the meantime, if you go missing, find yourself a medium and get her to tell you where you live.
Good advice.
And we'll see you next week.
Cheerio for now.
Bye-bye.